Great. So welcome everyone. Good to see your faces. For those of you who have not met me or seen me before, I'm Jay Gash. I'm the associate director and creative producer of our YEM programs. I think I need to rename myself because Zoom likes to say directory instead of director. But I'm happy to have Ashley O'Shea join us. Also in the room, before we get to Ashley's introduction, is Gabriel Lage, who is one of our Bridges instructors, and Jess Rowe, who is our factory instructor for the Next Gen program. Both of these classes are video production classes, different ranges. So for Bridges, that's 18 to 24. For factory, that's 14 to 17. And they're all ready to hear from you. So yeah, we have our Bridges fellows and our factory students, and there might be a few others joining us.
And I don't know if you saw, but Bella is also in the room.
Oh, great. Welcome, Bella. I wasn't sure if you were coming, but I'm so glad you can join us.
Hey, yep, I'm here.
Great. Cool. So, Ashley, I'll have you introduce yourself, and then Bella, you can introduce yourself as well. And maybe I'll show the short trailer just so folks who may not have an opportunity to watch the full film can just see a little bit about that.
Great, cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley O'Shea. I'm a director DP based in Chicago. I love the Bay. Actually, my sister lives in Oakland, so I've spent a good amount of time out there. Also was part of the Media Maker Fellowship with BAVC. So have been to the building and seen the facility and love it over there. Yeah, and I've been making films for about 10 years now. Unapologetic is my debut feature that I worked on for 4.5 years. And outside of that, I am a freelance DP here in Chicago and anywhere else that'll pay me. And so yeah, that's kind of my bread and butter.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. And if we could hear from you, Bella, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, my name is Bella Boz. Boz is BAHHS. That's Black Ancestors Here, Healing Society. Not bars, not prisons. I am an abolitionist. I am a raptivist. I'm a revolutionary. I'm one of the subjects of the Unapologetic documentary, which I guess some of you have seen, which is exciting. I'm getting my hair done right now, so I'm not gonna turn this camera on. I'm sorry for y'all. But I'm happy to see all y'all beautiful faces. And if you saw the documentary, you saw enough of my face anyway, so it's
okay. Awesome. Thank you, Bella. So I'm gonna just show a quick trailer, and apologies if there's a little bit of noise in the background. They're doing construction next door, but give me one moment to get that queued up. And let's see, desktop number 2. And can I get an audio cue on whether you can, oh, let me see, I need to actually do that again. Hold on, everyone. Forgot to check that box. Okay. If I could get an audio cue on whether you can see and hear this, that would be great.
yeah.
Good on both.
This is the part of Chicago that doesn't get talked about. Yes. Yeah, my mom was in federal penitentiary when she took that picture. Styling on them. I have a whole family here who I know needs protecting in a way that they've never been protected.
I'm a doctoral student organizing towards Black freedom.
I really want my research grounded in how we can envision what safety looks like outside of law enforcement.
There's been a major development in the police shooting of 22-year-old African-American woman, Rakia Boyd.
I committed to confronting this board, city council, and the mayor until y'all fire Dante Service.
Black
women do a lot of thankless and undervalued work.
We taking back our community. We taking back our community.
Our entire existence is resistance.
Was just like an exacerbated level of commitment.
It's very new, this idea of this being work. This has always been life.
This is Black history that we are making. Even if we don't, our stories gonna make it.
Okay, a little round of applause if we can. You're welcome to unmute yourselves for a second. Wow. So, let's see.
I told you I was gonna win. Windows 11.
Snafu. Let me exit that. So, sorry, 1 second. Yes, that's fine, Jess. So this film is incredibly powerful. There were definitely so many moments where I got chills, just, between looking at the protests, or Bella, when you were, confronted with the police officer, and just your poetry and your words, like speaking truth to power. Wow, just like, congrats on getting this film out there, Ashley. Bella, like the story that you told and were able to convey in the film is just so, so, so important, and we need more dialogues about it. But I wanted to start off with the first question of Ashley, like why this film, why this project? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, Chicago definitely was the beginning of my inspiration for this film. The organizing community specifically, when I began this film in the fall of 2015, we're just making so many waves in the city, in terms of how it was treating its Black citizens, how it was challenging and calling out police brutality, the systems of policing here in the city, and how that affected larger systems that were negatively affecting our Black communities. It was very hard to even try to look away, because there was just so much that was happening then. So I initially reached out to my other film subject, Janae Bansu, who at the time was a leader in Black Youth Project 100, but she was also in her first semester of her PhD program in social work. And I was captivated by the fact that not only a lot of these young Black organizers were young, one, but they were also people that I could directly identify with as a Black woman. And so that's what caused me to initially reach out to Janae, because of her leadership and just how I'd seen her out in public space. And after I got the green light from her and began filming with her, the tape of the killing of Laquan McDonald came out shortly after. And that was even more of a hallmark moment here in Chicago. And it felt like I was being compelled to go further than just Janae and just this one moment, but to kind of look long term at like the coming of age of leaders within this space. And so that's when I began to interview and reach out to other folks in the movement. I saw Bella perform in front of Chicago Police Headquarters after the police superintendent was forced to resign. And just so much energy and such a small package, and her lyricism, and it was just very electric. And so after that was when we began to talk more, and learning about her family's history in Chicago, and just kind of being a staple on the west side of the city. I really that's when I began to kind of follow the two of them as the main characters of this film, and really kind of shifted from a more, I guess, like top-down view of all the work that was happening and all the campaigns, and really focusing on these two young Black women, and the trials they were experiencing, but also the triumphs and all the small moments in between that make up our lives that we often don't see in the news cycle.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Ashley. I think, sometimes when it comes to filmmaking, for some it can be hard to find the subject matter, but for you it seems like this was like at your core something and a story that you wanted to tell. So I'm so very glad that you were able to. Um, One thing that you mentioned, Bella, about being a raptivist. There's this concept of artivism, or the combination of art and activism. And so I'm curious, like with your experience as a young person, like in the field and taking on new roles, like what that experience was like for you, and how you might encourage others who are, from what I heard from the film, 18 to 35 years old, get involved in opportunities like this.
Okay, so just reiterate your question for me. Okay,
Yeah.
I heard the arts activism piece, and then like, what do I want?
Yeah,
What's
no.
your question?
Oh, yeah, I'll say the question again. Sorry about that. So just thinking about the power of activism and sort of transitioning into it being artivism, and you identifying as a raptivist, how, like, can you talk a little bit about your experience as a young person in the age range of 18 to 35, and how others might be able to get involved in different cities?
Yeah, so my experience, I'm kind of like a poet first and foremost. So me sharing my story, me coming to, yeah, me sharing my story really started off as poetry. And um yeah, I started performing first, and then being in art spaces in Chicago, the art is almost inherently political. Um, so I just started being called upon because what I'm sharing is really related to my life and to what I see. So it is political. Um, and it was just uh, so reflective of not only what I was going through as a young Black woman in this city, but what so many people were experiencing in this city. And so I just started being requested to perform at different protests and rallies, after I had showed up to so many and started taking a mic, and then it was like people were calling on me to do it. So I don't know, I guess I'm just saying that, like, I stuck to my art, and my art just opened up doors for me. I didn't know that I was really headed into activism so much as I was honing my crafts as an artist. I was performing at places like Young Chicago Authors in Chicago. Um, and then yeah, that really heightened my knowledge about what was going on in terms of Black people around the nation being activated around the murders of Trayvon Martin and then Mike Brown. So the art brought me to the activism, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Um, and yeah, the personal brought me to the political, me understanding what was going on in my own life, but trying to make sense of that through poetry, and then connecting that to these bigger political issues that were going on. So my advice to people 18 to 35: care, care about what's going on, and understand that what you are experiencing as a young person um, is you inherited this world, right? So a lot of the things that you are experiencing is well beyond your control, well beyond any of your own personal choices or anything like that. And this, it's important to take a moment to reflect on like what you are in control of and what you aren't, how the family you were born to, the skin you were born in, the zip code you were born in impacts how you see the world, and how you experience the world, and understand that all of that is inherently political. And yeah, if you are an artist, um, make art that reflects the times truly. Um, and Yeah, be willing to commit your art to something greater, something greater. Yes.
Thank you, Bella. I really love what you said. You said the art brought you to activism, and the person or personal brought you to the political. And your point you made about just like where we are, where we land in this world. We are brought into this world not always by choice, or not by choice, but just that we, wherever we are, like there is some sort of ripple effect to the things that we do. Within this particular group of people who are here, we're all sort of self-identified as storytellers, and so I think you bringing that up as someone who, as a poet first, and then went into activism is really telling of some of the things that our students are interested in terms of the stories that they want to tell and expose others to. So I think that's really poignant, and so I appreciate you sharing that. In the interest of this being sort of a youth activity, I do want to open it up. I know some folks came prepared with questions, so does anyone want to ask the first question? And we're also joined by Sinclair and a few other folks from Right On, supporting other young individuals. Yes, I saw Melanie. Go for it.
Hello. This question is for Ashley, and I just want to say I really enjoyed watching the film. It was really moving. And one of the more technical aspects, I guess, that I was just curious about is I noticed that sometimes you would use like archived footage. And I was wondering what was the process of like getting that, and I guess the choice of using it. Yeah.
Great question. Yeah, so when I set out to make this film with this directive of queer Black women being at the center, it was also in the spirit of me wanting to learn more about Black women and queer folks and trans folks and otherwise that have had an impact on Black social movements since before Black Lives Matter was even a thing. I felt like in my formal education, we, as many of us, similar, I had always been taught about like the MLKs and the Malcolm X's, but I didn't know the names like Fannie Lou Hamer and Ida B. Wells that were really also central to a lot of the changes that we were seeing around Black life in the late 21st century. And so, this film was always in spirit of the work that those folks have been doing. And I guess to kind of push that a little bit further, I wanted to include archive that kind of gave space to that, but also was indicative that Black people have been organizing for our rights for years and for centuries. And initially it was a much broader search. I was kind of looking for any type of illustration of Black women in majority male spaces, or in community with other Black women, to kind of like really overtly illustrate that. And then, as I started to cut it together, it just kind of felt like it wasn't quite weaving into the narrative as seamlessly as we wanted. So I guess kind of where we landed was to include Chicago-centric archive throughout the piece, which I think appears 2 times. Once in the beginning, like the beginning interstitial with the poet, and then when Bella is driving around in Austin on the west side, and kind of reflecting on how the neighborhood used to be versus what it is now. So we kind of, after a very much broader search for just like archival that I thought was related to the topic, we got much more specific. And, given the content of the poetry in the beginning, we felt like these images of Black life in Chicago, juxtaposed with this poetry, this spoken word that's talking about, how Black people are magical, and we have all these there's wonderful things about our community and ourselves, but that they're constantly being challenged or stripped down because of the police state, you know, because of death. And so we kind of prepared the images according to those words to really pay homage to Black life in Chicago that has been such a staple of the city since it was founded. And then when Bella's driving around, really wanting to give a visual of like what the neighborhood used to look like, because I think Austin is indicative of a lot of other Black communities in the U.S. that have been, you know, set aside and forgotten about, but at one time were like a beacon of Black life and Black business, and hopefully encouraging some folks to think about how we can challenge our institutions so that we can return to that moment. I think it really shows that we're not so far away from these images of Blackness that we have in our head, that they were not that many decades ago. So yeah, that's kind of how we got to where we landed with the archive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ashley. Great question, Melanie. Other questions? Oh, I see Sejal. Go ahead.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you for sharing your film with us. Really inspiring, really got me thinking. So yeah, thank you so much. I had a question about the process of making this documentary. And as this piece was very, yes, political, but also very personal. There was a lot of emotion involved, a lot of like family history involved, and the crew like attended, I'm assuming, the protest. Like some of them were like attended the protests and stuff. So where did you draw the line to like stop filming, because things got really emotional really quickly? And so what was that process like? I'm just curious.
At the protest specifically, or when I decided to stop filming overall?
Like at the protest, or also like when you were like talking to Bella and Janelle. Like what was like when they both were like sharing their very personal stories, and then there was like a moment of breakdown. Like when did you decide as a filmmaker to stop filming, and what was that process like?
Got you. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, something to remember as a documentary filmmaker is that like you are dealing with real people in real situations, and so the first step, I think, in that is really just being mindful of basic human interaction. You know, thinking about if my life were to be portrayed on screen to a larger audience, like what would my limitations be, or where might some frustrations come up for me if someone was filming me in a very personal space. So I think when I was filming with them, I would just try as best as I could to be mindful of those kind of signals. And, you know, like someone like Bella's gonna tell me she don't want me to film anymore. So in some situations it didn't even need me to be gauged. You know, it was a very intentional process between the two of us in building our trust with one another. So I think, you know, taking the time to even do that, I naturally knew when to push and when to take a step back. So yeah, I think that throughout I just tried to gauge, you know, somebody's feelings or emotional state in a situation, and if I felt like it was inappropriate, or, you know, like I had to just kind of break away from thinking about the cinematic of it, because, you know, if someone's not in a space where you think they could talk about it or share about it, you know, sometimes like you can't think about it as like a loss, or like, oh, I'll never get this moment again, because 9 times out of 10 it'll happen again down the line, or, you know, you'll build the relationship further and then you're able to get that moment. For example, you know, the last scene that we filmed for Unapologetic was the scene of Bella and her mother going to visit her brother in prison. And, you know, that being kind of after around the 4-year mark of when I started the film, you know, it was a kind of multi-month process of me talking to Bella about the possibility of this. And this is something very near and dear to her. this is her brother. And so it wasn't something that I felt like I could just kind of like barge in on and say like, we're going to do this regardless of how you feel. And so I think because we took the time to do that in a way that she and her mom and her brother felt comfortable, that adds to the value of the scene. And that's why it hits so powerfully, because you can feel the connection between the filmmaker and the subject. So it really, it's a lot of it's just instinct and thinking about if you were in that same position, how, like, if you would want to have to continue communicating, like, I don't want to film anymore, like, this is done. You just kind of have to like think outside of the production and just think, person to person.
Thank you for sharing that.
Great question, Sejal. I think I see, is Jeremiah, is that a hand? Yeah? Okay, go for it.
Yeah, it's a hand. Actually, I don't know the pronunciation name, Sejal. Is that how you pronounce it? I had a similar question. So I'm kind of coming with another question. First off, thank you for allowing me to be on this panel or this meeting. It's a really great opportunity. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, after filming the movie Unapologetic, I kind of wanted to know, like, your thoughts after filming, like how you personally felt getting it out there and being able to share this experience with other people. And I would also, kind of as a little follow-up, want to know if you're interested in kind of taking this kind of this task again. How would you go about it differently or similarly in that sense?
I'll answer the second one. Bella, how did you feel with the film coming out? I'm gonna throw some questions to Bella so we could be equal. Bella, how did it feel bringing the film out into the world?
It felt like about time. Girl, cause we had been filming. I'm for real, cause we had been filming for so long. I was starting to get like, I was starting to believe it was never going to happen. Like, like, I don't know, maybe we're gonna use this footage at like my 50th birthday or something. We're gonna put a little slide together or something, but it's not gonna be no film because this girl playing. So I was really happy, like, okay, we did that. And then at this point, every time I see it, it's just a reminder to trust the process, a reminder that you don't eat the fruit the same day you plant the seed. And
okay, poet.
You know. Yeah, so it was like a relief when it came out, like, and it also felt like validating in a way, like all this was not for naught. That's crazy. Then they said that in a film. But
look, the script at this point.
I know, okay, right? As soon as I said it, I'm like, who I sound like? Oh, okay. But yeah, and it just feels incredible that like this conversation right now, that young filmmakers are watching, are engaging, are talking to the filmmaker, are asking very impressive questions. I'm really sitting here just impressed by what y'all want to know, and I just want to say a little bit more on that. Like, I heard y'all gonna do talks with Netflix or whoever, so maybe I don't think we a big deal to be talking to, which y'all crazy for if y'all don't, but get your questions ready for the Netflix crew or whoever, the people you are impressed with, you want to work with, you want them to know you. Like, get your questions ready. Like, just a question is a great first impression on somebody. I'll say that. Because y'all are making great first impressions on me, is what I'm saying. But yeah, I felt relieved when it came out. I felt proud. I felt very proud of Ashley. Like, I had been seeing you for years just with this camera on my face, and You know, being very obnoxious and annoying sometimes. But to see
After I just said this whole
why,
thing about letting you set boundaries.
but to see why, and it was like, yeah. So I felt very proud of her. I feel very proud of Janae. Like, you know, we have been doing a lot of work in the same sphere, but I did not see, you know, the intimate moments that Ashley saw. So to see how it all came together, and then we just went on a tour and watched it in Chicago and New York and LA. That was incredible. So just the impact that the film has is very different, I think, than the impact that the actual events of the film had. You know, like we impacted certain people in those moments. And you can see that like at the brunch, right? Like, so that had its own impact in that moment. But the impact that the film has of showing that moment, it's very different. So yeah, it even just reinforced for me the power of documenting your work. And, you know, as organizers, I think a lot of the times we don't want to center ourselves in the work. It's like the work is what's important. We're not important. But documenting what we are doing is just as important, and how we feel doing it is such a learning experience for people. So yeah, I learned a lot. Thank you for that question, for tossing me that question, Ashley. Now back to your part.
Yeah, and I think thinking about if I would have done anything differently, I think not differently necessarily. I kind of in what Bella was saying about trusting the process. I think I would have just been a little bit more open to that than I was in the beginning. You know, I was very tied to this idea that this film would be done in like a year and a half. Even though I was like very fresh out of school and didn't have like a major studio or like institution backing the project in the beginning. So I was very tied to that because that's always the timeline that everything else had been on in my life. But like when we made the decision to really focus more on Janae and Bella's lives and the journey they were going on, it was like, you can't rush somebody's life. And so that was the point where it was like, I really had to keep checking myself to be like, you know, you don't have to be constantly filming or like, you know, have weeks back to back of content, because that's not the natural flow of a person's life. And honestly, I think if it would have been done in that short of a window, it wouldn't have the major impact that it has had since it came out. So moving forward with new projects, that's definitely something I'm much more mindful of. And I've learned in documentary in general, like there's just there has to be room for that, because you're literally building a script, you're building a story from real lives and real events. So you can only control so much of that situation. But that's also what's really beautiful about it, because at some point, you know, all this stuff that just seems really random, or it seems like it doesn't have a connection at all, you know, working with the team, it all kind of starts to fall into place. And you know, it's like writing a script for a film for the first time. It's like you start to see all the dots connect. And so I'm that's something that I have to constantly remind myself, especially just being very used to having control in film situations. It's just not as like black and white in when you're making a feature like that.
Thank you for those great answers. I see Giselle, you have your hand up.
I have two questions, yeah. The first one would be towards like behind the scenes and towards the interview part, because there's also a few segments where it's like it just casual conversation. So it's also connecting to what Sejal was saying about when you draw the line, but also how you get these candid types of sincerity throughout the conversation when those interviews parts happen, and how you know which questions you want to be answered. That would be my first one, and the second goes for both Ashley and Bella, what's your favorite moment or favorite part throughout the whole documentary that you really enjoyed?
So your first one was how, sorry, I was like trying to, how do you determine the types of questions, or like how do I capture those genuine moments with the subjects?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, that's not to sound repetitive, but it really does go back to that relationship piece. You know, I think for both Janae and Bella, I know kind of like the initial access in a big way was because I was also a Black woman, but that didn't automatically mean, you know, that they were gonna like bare their souls and every part of their lives to me, you know, because no Black person has the exact same experience as another person. So even though, you know, I think that was a way to kind of comfortably ease into our relationship, I knew that I would have to do work to build the relationships outside of that. And so I really, you know, sometimes that meant, you know, talking to them without a camera, calling them without a camera, just seeing how their lives are going, seeing how I can support their work, you know, like seeing what events Bella had going on and helping her document those, meeting with their family members, going to South Carolina with Janae, meeting her grandma and her mom, all these kind of me being intentional about building relationships, you know, outside of with their whole family network, and you know, showing that I'm invested in them beyond just what their presence is in this film, and not making them feel like it's so transactional. I think it's what led to a lot of those genuine moments, and just like, yeah, and again, just being a Black woman who was experiencing a lot of the same things as them, and was definitely impacted by these acts of brutality that were happening, and have always been impacted by that. So I think there were just some things that I naturally knew or kind of gravitated towards. I knew it was important to document their birthdays because we exist outside of our work and outside of trauma and sadness. You know, I knew it was important to see their relationships with their mothers because I have an important relationship with my mother. So I think some of those instincts came in, but I think a lot of it was just that relationship piece, and them feeling more and more comfortable as things went along with me, seeing more intimate parts of their lives. Yeah, my favorite part of the film is the birthday scene. So as I said, I think I don't know. I have a lot of there's a lot between that, and I think when Janae is approved to get her to like move forward as a PhD candidate, I had just seen how long and hard she had worked for that. So I was just glad someone was present in that moment to be there with her, but also just to celebrate her success.
Those are actually a couple of my favorite moments too. Those are the moments I had in mind. But okay, I don't want to have the same answer as you, so I'm gonna say something else.
You can have different reasons.
Huh?
Okay, go ahead. You can have different reasons for liking them.
Well, yeah, I do. I love the birthday scenes because there's so many of my friends in there. And my birthday scene at least. And I just love in Janae's birthday scene that she was like really lit, and you know she in the middle of working on this PhD. And just seeing her like relax, unwind, and yeah, I love that for her. I love her grandma so much when her grandma talks to you in the film. That's probably my all-time favorite moment when she like, well, I talk to everybody. I love that. And I really love how it opens with the Black brunch, the brunch action. I think I'm hilarious in that scene. That's why. It's so many.
Everybody's stressed out and you just laughing.
I'm just cracking up. I thought it was hilarious. Oh yeah, it's a lot of good moments in this film.
Yeah, her grandma finally saw it like
At
like
the
a month
South
ago.
Carolina one? At
Yeah,
the South
yeah,
Carolina one?
yeah. And
Yes.
Janae sent me a message from her, and she said she was like, "I'm so proud of you," blah blah blah. But she was like, "I would tell
Aw.
it myself if I knew how to text." I was like, okay. It was very precious.
Yes. Yes.
So lovely. Other questions in the audience? Yes, Rachel.
Yeah, so this is a question for Bella. You kind of touched on it during the birthday scene when you're making yourself a taco, but knowing that burnout is very common amongst activists, how do you keep yourself like grounded and how do you avoid that burnout, especially being so young?
Oh my gosh, y'all like young artists. I do not want to tell y'all to do drugs, Lord.
This is always the answer. Girl, they live in California. They know. Bayback gonna email us
Lord.
your subjects are.
It's fine. We'll cut that out of the recording. Just cut that out.
Okay, right. I pray. Lord.
We get the
Meditate,
just speak
yoga.
around it.
Exactly. Meditate, yoga. Oh no, having good friends though, like having people that you are doing the work with and can unwind with, like that moment where I'm with my friend and we're having a conversation and engaging in relaxing activities.
Oh
yeah, I would being able to have people that you can decompress with and debrief with. And yeah, you gotta have fun. Like you just got to, as much as we are trying to change, like in this film, we literally are like setting out to change the world when we are talking about how the state responds to Black people. Like that is a major change. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes, as you saw, we were filming for 4 years and we still have lots and lots and lots of work to do. So those moments, like just hold on to those moments where you really feel joy and be present in them. Like, be present for the work, but be present for the joy. Be so present in it that you can almost touch it the next time you need it.
Thank you.
Very well said, Bella. Thank you. Other questions in the audience? And I also want to open up to Ashley and Bella for you to ask the students questions too, if you are curious about like their trajectory or what their pathway is, because we still have a couple more minutes. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, oh, you have a question? Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. This one's for you though. Opening up with that scene and the white peoples were having some brunch. What made you want to choose that scene and open up your film this way?
Yeah, that was definitely a team effort to make that decision. We always knew that scene was going to be in the film, but it had kind of been intercut in different places throughout our different rough cuts. Once we knew we just needed a way to kind of land the audience into what the spirit of this film was. And it was a little difficult with other protest scenes because you kind of needed a lot of explainer like who was Rakia Boyd, who was Laquan, or like any of the other kind of campaigns they were working on. But at some point after Rough Cut, I think someone suggested, moving that scene to the front. And I was like, oh, y'all crazy. That don't make no sense. It's too, like, there's things jumping around everywhere. Like, it's so stressful. It was acquired footage. I had to get like licensing for it. But we tried it. We tried it at the end, just up front. And we realized it was kind of perfect because you again didn't have to explain that much about it. It was kind of like you were being placed in that scene with the people at brunch. You were being confronted with the names of different Black folks that had been killed by the Chicago Police Department and other police departments. And so it's like an automatic education, automatic in your face. And then you are able to kind of place yourself in that scene, like, okay, would I be more of a protester or a brunch goer in this situation, or would I be both? And how would I kind of handle that, or how have I been complacent in how I have talked about police brutality in my community and with the people that I know. So yeah, and it's high energy, so it wakes you right up, and you're just I think after that, we kind of try to slow it down a little and give a little bit of reflection time. But I think just like a lot of Black organizers in the city, it's high energy, it's in your face, and so it felt very aligned with that spirit.
Thank you.
We have one more question in the chat, and then Ashley, I know you were about to ask a question, but how long was your first rough cut versus the final version, and did you have a hard time picking your favorite footage and letting go of footage? That's coming from Sajal.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you need to tell them that it was only supposed to have been like a 20-minute a 20-minute
like
film. First of all, that's what you need to tell them.
Okay, got you. Yeah, originally I was just thinking about it as a short about Janae and like her first semester in her PhD program, because again, I was fresh out of college and I didn't even fathom the idea of directing. First of all, directing, because I was much more into DPing, and directing a feature was like way beyond that. But like I said, the tape of the killing of Laquan McDonald came out, and a bunch of other stuff just happened in that first couple of months that I kind of accidentally ended up just accepting that it was going to be a feature, because I was just acquiring so much footage. I don't know how long the first rough cut was. It was probably, I know at some point it was at least 2.5 hours, which is just like miserable to watch. And so yeah, it was 2.5 hours, 2 hours-ish. And then the final is like 1 hour 26. So we landed right under the sweet spot of the 90-minute mark. Yes, very hard time picking. I wouldn't even say fake footage, just footage that we thought belonged in the film, and there are many, disagreements about what some of that was. I think one of the things that we wish we could have included was a 40-something day occupation that Bella and a group here called Let Us Breathe. They set up an occupation across from a police torture site here in Chicago called Home and Square, and like basically lived out there and educated the community and fed the community and took care of the community for 40-something odd days. And it was really to imagine what the world would be like without police in a police-free state on the west side of Chicago. And it was really beautiful and revolutionary, and I think brought about a lot of growth in everyone that was there. So we have footage of it. We unfortunately just didn't weave. It's always about weaving it in a way that feels seamless. But we did kind of put out a shorter packaged version of it that I'm glad we got to put out while they were out there. But yeah, that's one of many other scenes that didn't make the cut.
Yeah, we were. It was a point where Aston was filming like every day. Like it was actions going on every single day, or at least a few times a week. So
I was like, I don't know about every day, Bella, but yeah.
girl, it felt like
Yeah,
it. It felt like it.
It did feel like it, especially
And
2015, 2016. It was very active.
tell them how many hours of footage you have.
What is it? 150, 150 hours, I think.
150 hours, y'all. It's only 24 hours in a day. This girl got 150 hours of footage.
As y'all see, Bella is my number one hype woman.
Cause also somebody asked was like, and you, cause you be blowing me, you be underselling yourself. Cause somebody asked, was the crew there at the protest? First of all, she is the crew. She is the crew. Yes, she was there at everyone. Like, yes, she was right there.
I do not advise that though, y'all. Like, please get help if you can. But yes, it was a one woman band situation. It was just go time. I didn't have time to wait to have the funding or the right people in place. Chicago wasn't gonna wait on me, so we just had to make it happen.
Period. Don't play with her. That's all I'm saying.
I love that you hit the ground running and you just go with it. And 150 hours, yeah, that's a lot. I'm working on my first feature and I'm on like probably the 40, 50 hour mark. But yeah.
You'll probably be there by the end.
We'll see. Awesome. So we are at 5:24. I wanted to also just check back in the chat if there are any last questions from the students. I do try to wrap up with one like overarching question at the end, but I also have a quick request for those of you who are comfortable. I would love to take a screenshot. So if you don't have your cameras on and you feel comfortable, please turn them on and I'll get a couple of photos just to say that this actually happened and you were in the presence of an amazing filmmaker and raptivist. So get camera ready if you're gonna come on. And I'll take a couple, so give me 1 second. All right, 3, 2, 1. And okay, find an object that is near you that you can use as a prop. So I have there's a tape dispenser I got a very long time ago.
Oh, this is like a test.
Let me see if I can do this with 2 hands.
That is such a nice thing. All I have is literally like a Wendy's cup. Like, what am I supposed to do?
It could be a bottle, it could be a plant, it could be, yeah, there we go. Okay, everybody ready? Okay, one more. And got it. Perfect. Okay, so we're at 5:26. I try to wrap things up with like a sort of a takeaway that the students can like lean into, but Bella, at the beginning you kind of dove into like some words of wisdom or advice. So what words of wisdom or advice would you give to emerging filmmakers, to young people who are, figuring out what their pathway and their journey is?
Yeah, I always just say to look at the people that are around you now, and start to grow and build those relationships, like fellow young filmmakers, fellow young artists. It's a good idea to kind of start building your tribe or building with folks that are kind of adjacent to you as you move along. I think so often we feel like we have to reach up to people that are, further along than us or have more accolades than us, when a lot of times there's so much strength amongst your peers. And as you kind of journey through this media making process, and maybe go to school for it and maybe make a career out of it, you're going to find yourself always returning to those like reliable folks that have supported you from the beginning, and just allow yourself time to like fuck up and like make bad art. There's so much terrible stuff that I made when I was in high school, but that's okay because that was all part of me learning, and it's a good time to do it now because the stakes are a lot lower, and so by the time I like got to college and just magically accidentally started making a feature, I felt like I had kind of worked through a lot of those things already, and didn't, wasn't so worried about the perception of things out in the world, because I kind of had already figured out how to deal with that.
And Bella, any last words of advice or wisdom?
Yeah, I guess I would just say release your ego. Like, I already thought I was an incredible artist and in person, human, before the film, but I was not I was not a documentary subject before the film, right? So you can only do so much, and you have to be willing to accept help and to recognize other people's talents, right? So my talents actually captured because with her talent, like she's a filmmaker, right? Like the way that she extended herself and her talents to support and amplify mine, I think is just the best example anybody could follow is to, you are elevating yourself also when you elevate the people around you. So yeah, kill your ego and support the people around you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Bella, for those last words. Is there a place where people can follow you or find you on social media that you wouldn't mind putting in the chat?
Yes, it's just my name.
Okay. Perfect. So yeah.
On both, and then here's the film. Bella, when we put yours.
Yeah, could you? Because I can't. Okay, right. And I also have a website. It's bellabaz.com. And if you go on there, me and Ashley created a virtual performance together. She filmed a performance that I did that you can access on there. Yeah.
EP coming soon.
EP coming soon. Just stay tuned. I also write a monthly column called the Revolutionary Column. It's very Chicago centric, but it's also very relevant to, I think, bigger themes of Blackness and political education that people anywhere could relate to or learn from.
Awesome. And so also for Bridges and Factory students, I'll make sure you receive the discussion guide as well. There was sort of some supplementary materials with questions like to think a bit deeper about the film. So I'll make sure you have that. And then Sinclair, I can also forward that along to you for the Write On students. But thank you so much for joining us today. I wanted to make sure we kept it at an hour, but this was really wonderful to hear about your process, to hear what it was like to make the film, and for you to be able to talk to our young people. Everyone asked such amazing questions, and I hope it, sparks some more curiosity about artivism, activism, and how you engage in storytelling. So thank you all for joining us. Our Bridges Fellows will be staying tight in this Zoom. So Factory, I think, Jess, you should already have Factory link right on. I'm not sure where you're going after this, but it's so lovely to have you all join us this afternoon, early evening. And yeah, can we give a round of applause to Ashley and Bella? You can unmute yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Really
thanks, y'all. It's great.
Ashley, Bella, you all are amazing. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Y'all are amazing. Keep up the work, and yeah, it was great to talk with y'all. I look forward to seeing your work out in the world.
Yes, we'll share. We have our for the Bridges Fellows and the Next Gen students at about beginning and mid-December. They'll have their celebrations and showcases where you can see the work.
Ooh, yes, I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Well, thank y'all for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay and Jess. We'll see you all another time. Yes.
Have a good evening.
Good.
Thank you.